Hey everyone, this is Matt with Learn Everything About Design, and in today's video we are going to finally get our hands on an Einstar. Now this has been a big request on the channel for quite a while, and anybody that's been around the channel for a few years, you'll know that one of the first 3D scanner videos that we did was with a Shining 3D Pro HD scanner. Now after that point, that was before the Einstar line was sort of created. There have been a few contacts between myself and Shining 3D, and nothing ever really worked out. Today is the day that we finally got our hands on one of the scanners, and we'll probably be covering more in the Einstar lineup. Now keep in mind, there are a lot of things to consider here. One, we are an affiliate for a couple of different scanner brands. There are a lot that have been flooding my inbox to cover, but I thought it was a good time for us to finally get in on the Shining 3D scanners because so many of you have requested it. There are other scanner brands that we'll talk about in the future, but for right now, let's start with the Einstar2, and then hopefully in future videos, we'll also be covering some of the other scanners. Now, full disclosure, we have signed on as an affiliate, which means that check the description of the video. There'll be an affiliate link and hopefully some discount there for you if you are looking to buy one of these. With all of our videos, I will do my best to give you my honest opinion. I've had a lot of back and forth with Shining 3D about things I like and things I don't like about the scanner, and we'll talk about that in this video. They've given me sort of a blank canvas for me to talk about what I like and don't like about the scanner, so everything in this video is my own opinion. Another note, we have just released some new shirts. So we have a Will 3D Scan for tacos and we have a Will CAD for tacos. So if you are looking to pick up some merch to support the channel, then we do have these on our site, as well as a CAD bod shirt that we just released. Keep in mind, only buy the shirts if you really want the shirts. If you're looking for ways to support the channel, very little money from merchandise goes to the channel. So buying one of our courses on learneverythingaboutdesign.com, that's a great way to support the channel. Or again, if you're looking to purchase a product like an Einstar scanner or any of the other products that we're affiliates with, then you can go ahead and check out that information in the description. So all that said, let's dive into this scanner. Let's talk about what it is, let's talk about the pros and the cons. All right, so here we have the Einstar2. Now, the Einstar was the original flagship of the Einstar brand. So if you don't know, Shining 3D has been a 3D scanning company for quite a while. They offer a professional line, and these are more of a consumer grade. Now, just like every one of the scanners that we cover on this channel, that doesn't necessarily mean that it is a bad scanner, but consumer grade is generally just a lower entry price point, meaning that we've got some reduced features compared to the professional scanners, reduced capabilities, things like that. So the Einstar2 is a dual mode scanner. We've got 17 parallel laser lines, and we've got an IR mode, which is a VCSEL mode, the VCSEL mode. So out of both of those, the laser mode gives us basically 0.05 resolution, 0.05 millimeters up to 10 millimeters. And so basically you can decide and you can make settings inside of the software to decide what you want that resolution to be. When you go into the IR or the VCSEL mode, then you're starting at 0.2 millimeters and you go up again to 10 millimeter resolution. Now, what I found so far is that the laser scanning produces some extremely high quality results. We'll take a look at some scans in a minute. When we're on the laser scan mode, we're pulling in about 2.5 million points per second, and you're anywhere from about 100 millimeters to 600 millimeters away from the object you're scanning. In the IR mode, that is 4.8 million points per second, so you're pulling in, again, quite a lot of data, and you're anywhere from about 160 to 1400 millimeters away. So that means that it's a really good scanner for scanning big objects on that IR or that VCSEL mode. And then you've got the laser mode, which gives you the ability to get the really high resolution, precise details of the objects you're scanning. Now, both of those have the ability to use global markers or marker files. However, the IR or the VCSEL mode opens up texture scanning, feature scanning, as well as a hybrid mode. And that lets you use both markers as well as features. So you basically pick what you want to use in order to track. Now, the benefit here is that you can scan bigger objects with fewer markers as long as you've got unique features that can be used for tracking. So when we start to think about this scanner, one really big thing that I need to point out is the hardware. Now, the hardware requirements on the minimum side for a Windows PC is a 13th gen i7, 32 gigs of RAM, and an RTX 3060 or above. Now, my laptop here is a 13th gen i7. It has 32 gigs of RAM. However, the card in it is one of the RTX 3500 ADA cards. And so those are kind of a weird nomenclature. It's theoretically above the minimum spec card, but it's not in their approved line. Now, on the Mac side of things, you're typically looking at something like an M1 Pro or an M3 on the lower end and 16 gigs of RAM. Now, obviously, the ideal specs are quite a bit higher than that. You want to go up to like an i9, 64 gigs or more of RAM. And on the Mac side, you really want to be at like a 24 gigs of RAM or above and a higher processor. All right, so during this video, let's just go ahead and pause for a second. Let's just walk through scanning with this thing so we can get a real idea of speed. So what we're gonna do is, I've got it's set up wirelessly right now. I'm gonna do a quick scan of the top of this KTM case cover. We've scanned this with loads of different scanners. We're gonna do it completely wirelessly. We are going to set up the project, scan it, and go through the process so you can see how quick it is. All right, so first setup, I'm gonna do a new group. And we'll just call this KTM cover live. We're going to pick laser scan. And currently it says it's offline, which is strange. Let's go ahead and it said it was connected. Let's try this again. All right. So we are connected. Now, we want to make sure it says I'm getting an error for calibration. That's okay. You go laser scan. We'll just start from the beginning here. Laser scan. We're going to be using markers. I just have a couple of markers on the part. I've got big markers on the desk below. I'm going to set the resolution at 0.25. Brightness is in the middle. I'm not going to worry about acquiring texture, but that is an option here. And so once I've got those set, the first thing we do is press the play button to start the preview. You can kind of get an idea of how close you need to be. There's green on the side of the screen, and the light up here changes color depending on where you are. It flashes if you lose connection. And so once I'm there, hit play, we'll start scanning. Just kind of go back and forth till it turns blue. And then I'm gonna come over to the side and make sure that I get all the sides of the parts. Now, I've scanned this part a couple of times, and I will say that in most of the cases, I had it scanned in under a minute. It may take a little bit longer now since I'm kind of talking and moving things around, but simply just move it over the part, and you can see it's pretty responsive. Again, this is parallel line only. There are no cross laser lines. And generally you want to be perpendicular to the object that you're scanning. So down around these different areas, we want to make sure that we get pretty low. I'm also trying not to block the view here. And I think I just need a little bit more in that corner. And that's probably pretty good for us. We'll pause. Take a quick look. And again, one of the really nice things here is we have the ability to basically clear out any points we don't want before we get to the generating of a point cloud. So I'll just delete that. There are some floating points under there. I'm not too concerned with that because it'll filter that stuff out automatically. And then from here, we just hit the button to generate point clouds. There are two options. The second one, to optimize, will use up more RAM. It will take a little bit longer. This one here for this part, again, scanned roughly a minute. It didn't really take very long. You can see that it generated the point clouds in, I don't know, less than a minute. From here, if you want to do any cleanup, you can. There are some areas where I could have spent more time. See, it's a bit messy in the corner. For the purposes of what we're doing here, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to just mesh the model. I'm going to use the recommended settings. You can also use this intelligent simplification. I'm just going to use all the default settings, hit preview, It'll pull out the markers off the part. It'll smooth them out for me. I don't have to do any of that work. And then we'll confirm the choices. Once we confirm the choices, you can do additional steps such as simplification. So you can preview it or you can directly confirm it. You can optimize the mesh. I'm not going to preview it. I'm just going to confirm it. And yeah, again, so I didn't get that back corner well enough, but you can see the rest of the scan. I mean, for just less than a minute, looks pretty good. And once you're done with all of the different steps of cleanup, you come over here and you export the scan if you want to directly as this, or you go into measurements. And in measurements, this is where you start to create features like a plane. So for example, I maybe want to create a plane on this face. So we'll go and we'll select 3 points on the face, and we'll create a plane. That plane is going to be used for alignment to XYZ. If I want to generate a line that's going to represent X or Y, for example, we can say we want it to be in this direction. I could also create planes and use a plane intersection. And the last thing we need is a point. The point is going to be the location of XYZ 0. This can be based on intersection. I'm just going to pick a point right here. And then we'll close that. And then we'll use this align option. 3, 2, 1 system. First, we'll pick our plane. We need a plane, a line, and a point. We'll align it, and then we'll close. And so now what we have is our part aligned to XYZ, and we can export the mesh. You can save it locally. I'm not using Xmesh for design. Again, a lot of these tools are going to be quick surface rebrands or powered by quick surface. So instead of shipping it directly to there, I'm just going to save it locally as an STL. And so that process, again, relatively quick, in under probably 3 or 4 minutes. Obviously spending more time, I'm going to get a better scan. This cover is dirty, it's not clean, so the edges, some of the edges have little nicks and dings which do tend to affect the reflectiveness of it. And so spending more time in those areas, collecting more data at different angles will give me a cleaner scan. So with a part like this, spending probably 2 minutes scanning would give me more than enough data on the outside, flip it 2 minutes on the inside, and then we can go ahead and process it. Again, a future video, we're going to walk through the entire process step by step, but this is just a quick demo showing how easy it is to go from not scanning at all, setting up your group and your project, doing a single scan, processing and generating the mesh from there. All right. Whew. All right, so we're going to go ahead and do features, marker, texture on this because I have some marker dots kind of sparsely spread around the front of it. Go ahead and turn it a little bit. And I'm going to use all the default settings, actually working distance. Let's go ahead and increase that a little bit. And so again, we want to hit preview, make sure we're in a good location, and then start to scan. And so basically this process is pretty quick because we have the ability to get relatively far away. So I'm probably not going to be able to get around the back side of this thing, but let's go ahead and get over here. Yeah, okay. Let's flip it this way, see if I can get around the backside. And big reach. Okay. So tracking on this thing has been really stable. Just moving around this part relatively quick. See, it looks like it's shifting a little bit. It's trying to find where it is. And then we'll pause it and have a look. All right, so I'm going to turn the color off because a lot of times that can hide. All right, and so what we're going to do is we're going to turn this into a point cloud. This process for the IR scans tends to take a little bit of extra time, so I'm going to let that crank away and speed you along in the video. All right, so when scanning with this thing, wireless definitely works the best, especially for larger objects. Scanning with laser scanning, I haven't really noticed a performance difference wired versus wireless. While I hate the cables, I tend to prefer wired scanning for some of this stuff. However, with this device, wireless seems to be relatively easy. Seems to connect automatically to the computer, no problem. I haven't had any issues trying to make any connections there. And obviously scanning something like this transmission, if I was wired up and trying to go all the way around it like this, I would run out of space. So I'd have to reposition the transmission. I'd have to move the laptop, something like that. So I would definitely say that's a big plus for this unit, is having the ability to scan wirelessly for objects like this, bigger objects like, you know, car parts, something like that. So let's go ahead and let's hop back into the rest of the video. Now that we've seen scanning wirelessly, something big, we've also seen scanning wirelessly with laser, something smaller. And hopefully this will give you just kind of a good general sense or general range on the different parts here. All right, so now let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the things I like and the things I don't like about the scanner. So first off, the things I like. It is really responsive when you're using it in laser mode or in VCSEL mode. I'm really happy with the tracking, the feature tracking in it, the marker tracking, the angle that you can be relative to the marker dots. All of those things have worked pretty well, pretty flawlessly for me. I played around with various settings. There are some settings in there like performance indicators, automatic base removal. Again, you can do textures and texture remapping, color scans, and you've got all of those different functionalities built into it. Now, when you're using it in laser mode, again, you need markers or a global marker file, but I would say that the responsiveness and the speed feels like you've got a lot more laser lines than are packed into this thing. And the fact that it's only parallel and not cross laser line, that doesn't really seem to have a big impact. I've scanned a couple things here, some of the common things that we scan across the board, and the results have been excellent. When we are scanning wirelessly, I've been as far as about 20 feet away from the laptop without any issues. I'm not using any sort of phone app or anything like that. I'm just simply looking at the screen and kind of moving. There are some lights and some indicators on the scanner itself that change color, and there are audible noises. If you are, like, let's say, lose tracking or something like that, it'll beep at you and you kind of go from there. But other than that, you can kind of move around pretty freely around objects. I did scan the entire GPZ with mixed results. It's got polished aluminum parts, it's got black parts, it's got painted parts, black 3D printed parts. And because of all of those different textures and colors, most scanners run into issues because when you get to dark objects versus painted objects, your exposure value and intensity of things like that, those have to change. And changing them on the fly causes problems. So I had better results using a scan spray on the darker objects. I was able to pull out more detail, but ultimately those kinds of things are going to be tricky, and that's where you would likely put marker dots and do some laser scanning of more detailed areas that you need, things like engine cases and so on. But using the IR or the VCSEL mode, I was able to scan bigger objects, car transmission just fine. Scanning smaller stuff didn't work as well for me. I would definitely go with the laser mode if you're scanning smaller objects that have more detail. Now, one thing I will mention too when you're using the software, something that was instantly apparent to me is that when you're previewing a mesh that you scan in IR mode, the preview on the screen doesn't have nearly the level of detail that you get once you generate the point cloud. And so it can look on the screen as you're scanning, it can look that you're getting just horrible melted blobby results. But as soon as you generate the point cloud from that, then a lot of that detail comes out. I was playing around scanning things like the drill that we've used in other scan videos. And what I noticed is at first it didn't look like I was getting much of anything, but as soon as I generated the point cloud from the raw data, a lot of that detail started to pop out. So that's something you should definitely keep in mind. It's certainly not going to be as crisp as the laser scan because again, the resolution difference is 0.05 to 0.2. And those numbers are both relatively small, but the difference between a 0.05 millimeter and 2 millimeter or 0.2 millimeter scan is pretty drastic when you're talking about minute details. Things that a laser scanner will pick up will just kind of be smooth and have that sort of melted look when you're talking about using an IR scan. And not just on this scanner, pretty much everything. You have to go by those resolution numbers and figure out what level of detail you need. So some of the pros that I like the ability that it is wireless and can be wireless. I like the fact that it feels very responsive in the software. The laser scanning works well. The IR scanning works pretty well for bigger objects. It's not something I would typically use for smaller objects, but having that hybrid alignment really helps out. I like the fact that the software gives you the ability to align to a coordinate system. That's something none of the other scan manufacturers have included currently. And so the ability to process your scan all the way to a mesh and then align it to a coordinate system is really big. And I also like some of the other aspects. You have a lot of mesh editing tools inside the software. So you have the ability to really refine the mesh before you align it and before you export it. Some of the things that I don't like, again, I want to make sure that I clarify this, that in my conversations with Shining 3D, a lot of these things are in development or in progress right now. So some of the things I will mention whether or not they're being worked on or not. My first gripe is actually the battery. I don't have any issues with the battery, but I don't like the fact that the battery has to be included in wired mode. Now, again, I mentioned the reason for this is because it needs to keep the projector at a consistent voltage. So I understand the reasoning behind it. The reason that I don't like it, and I actually had this happen yesterday when I was scanning, is typically when you unplug a scanner, it will power off and you don't need to do anything else. Because this is battery powered, when you unplug the scanner, you still need to hold down the play button for 5 seconds to turn it off. And I actually forgot to do that yesterday. I put it in the case, zipped it up, and I went about my day. I did something for a couple hours and I had to come back and scan something else. So I came back down and I could hear the fans running. And so what ended up happening is this thing was running basically on battery power with the fans running in a sealed case for a couple of hours. It didn't automatically turn itself off. And because I had forgotten to hold the button for 5 seconds, I didn't really notice that it was on when I packed it up because the fans weren't going at that point in time. Now the temperature when I pulled it out was fine. I haven't had any issues scanning after the fact, but just the fact that that happened is a reason that I don't like having a battery in there if you're using it in wired mode. One solution to that would be to automatically power it off if you unplug the USB-C, or potentially there's a timeout that could happen if it's not used or moved within 10 minutes, then it can power itself off, and that would avoid that problem. Because I could certainly see you putting this together, testing it out, and then going to some location to scan something, realizing that you just used up 50% of one of the batteries because it's been sitting there on in the case the entire time. So that's one gripe. That's not something that they're actively working on as far as I'm aware. And this can be avoided by turning it off or remembering to turn it off. And again, with more use, that would be, pretty commonplace, or by removing the battery every time. There is a little plastic case in here for the batteries, and it does hold both batteries. So that would be a way to get around this, by making sure that you do turn it off and remove the battery every time as just part of the process of packing it up. So again, that was my bad, but that's something that I think is just something that you should be aware of. Make sure that you do remember to turn it off, because it's not, the blue light on here, it definitely indicates that it's on, but generally the fans weren't running. There's not really a good indicator. So if you grab the thing and just put it in, you could very easily forget that it was on. The second con in my list is the fact that before you can use the scanner, you have to register it online. So I've talked with Shining about this. You know, they mentioned it's a safety issue. They don't want somebody to be able to take your scanner and begin using it. So you do need to register it before you can use it. Then you can use it offline and it doesn't need to be connected to the internet. But I felt that that should be an optional step rather than a required step to use the scanner. I do understand the need to register these devices. You're spending money, whether it's $1,000 or $10,000 on scanners or whatever the equipment is, then you do want to protect that investment. But again, I felt that should be optional. So that's a con in my book, because it is required before you can use the scanner. But you do need to be connected to the internet. And you do need to register this. So the rest of the cons are all things that are being worked on or improved or adjusted in some way. So my first con is, or really the rest of these are in the software. The performance of the software, again, as I mentioned, it really does like using up RAM. That is something that they're working on improving. I did notice the processing time taking quite a bit more time on IR scans than laser scans. And so that felt like an area of improvement. The converting of the raw data into a point cloud on the IR scans, that can certainly be improved. I haven't seen CPU or GPU spiking at all, just RAM on my end. So hopefully they can tap into more of those resources and speed that process up. The modifications to the mesh, there are tons of tools in there so you can go through and you can process your mesh. Currently, there's not a way to save all of the changes that you've made to the mesh other than exporting it. And so again, these are areas that they're improving and they're working on. I think it'd be really helpful to be able to save those changes so you can come back and you could reprocess it if you wanted to, but you don't have to basically start from scratch and start from that point cloud. And on that same topic, you can merge and align multiple scans together. What you cannot do is mix and match laser and IR scans. They are going to be in different groups. When you create a group, you are basically creating or picking laser scanning or picking IR scanning. So if you do happen to want to scan a big object like a car fender and then do a laser scan in a smaller area, those cannot be put together currently. I have been told, again, these are things they're working on. Those can't be put together currently into a single sort of grouped point cloud and turned into a mesh. On that same line, when you are taking all the scan data in a project and trying to mesh something, all of the scans are included in that meshing process. So if you've got extra scans that you use just for alignment or just in case, or maybe you're scanning something on a table and you did 5 scans of an object and you remembered you needed a scan of something else, don't include them into the same project because everything gets included when you go to that meshing stage. And so I run into this because I have a tendency to scan a bunch of different stuff. I'll align certain things, I'll align other things together, and maybe turn that into a mesh, turn that into a mesh. You can't really do that in the X-Hub software, so you have to be very mindful of the groups and the projects and what it is you're actually trying to get out. Because if you have scan data you don't want to include in the mesh, you have to delete it and remove it. So that's a step in the process I feel could be improved. And again, these are things that they are working on. I know that seems like the cons list is pretty long, but I think it's important to note that most of them are software related and most of them are in progress in terms of being improved or changed. I do like the fact, again, that you can align to an XYZ coordinate system directly in X-Hub before you export your mesh. That's something that goes quite a long way. Typically, we go into Quick Surface, Light, or Pro, and we do our alignments there. Generally, we'll still go into Quick Surface to do other things, but a lot of that alignment can now happen at the X-Hub level, and then you can export and align to mesh directly from the scan software, which really helps. So let's go ahead and wrap this video up. Again, we are an affiliate. We just signed up to be an affiliate for Shining 3D. We've had loads of requests to cover Shining or Einstar scanners for the past couple of years. So hopefully now we can better represent these scanners on the channel and answer the questions that a lot of you have asked. If you want any information about our affiliate links and stuff, I'll put all that in the description of the video. Again, we did release a couple of shirts. We'll 3D scan for tacos, we'll CAD for tacos, but only buy them if you want the shirt. We've also released a CAD bod shirt. Again, we probably make $1 to $2 on shirt sales or merchandise sales. So it's not much. If you're looking for a shirt that you like, buy it. If you're looking to support the channel, certainly consider buying one of our courses or other ways that that you can help out. If you're buying a scanner using our affiliate link, that helps out as well. So if there are any questions or comments, please let me know. Again, remember a lot of my long con list, most of those things are being actively worked on by Shining 3D. So all the sort of gripes I have in terms of the software are all in development. So those are all things that we can look for improving and changing in the future. The battery issue, again, this is something where if you just hold down the power button for 5 seconds, that is automatically going to power the device off. That's something that you just have to remember to do as part of closing it up, and it won't be a problem. The registration, for me, that's kind of a con, having to register it. I wish that was optional, but again, it's probably a minor inconvenience and probably not something most people care about. So those are all my takeaways from this. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.